The path of an artist is full of challenges, which has pushed me to reach out to other professionals about their experiences. Join us as we explore the journeys of fine artists who have turned their passion of creating art into a profession. From their highs to their hurdles, these are real insights, breakthroughs, and triumphs to inspire other creators to reach higher. Welcome to the Business of Art Podcast. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Business of Art Podcast. And this is the next episode. Our current guest today is Krystii Melaine. We are absolutely honored to have our first female guest to the show. Definitely not the last. In fact, the next several episodes will be women. So very excited about that prospect and to hear a different perspective of being a professional artist. So to go along with what I've been doing, I'm just going to read some key points from Krystii's bio. So I think the first and foremost thing that is interesting to me is she was born in Australia.
Yeah.
And, we've been speaking with American artists this whole time, and now it's nice to have a more international experience here. So she was born in Australia, and at age 4, she announced that she was going to be an artist. She knew from very early on. Mm-hmm. And at the age of 7, she won her first art competition, and she was selling paintings by the age of 14. Wow.
Yeah.
She went into university for graphic design, and she ended up creating a bridal and evening wear company that ended up growing really big. She had 50 employees, and her designs were sold throughout Australia and New Zealand. And she even showed in Paris and London. After 9 years as a fashion designer, she returned to her lifelong passion of painting. She studied traditional tonal realism for 5 years while building a successful career as a wildlife and portrait artist. However, the Australian art market was limited, so she looked to the USA for opportunities. She was inspired first by wildlife, but then ended up moving into cowboys and Native Americans as well. And for a long time, she was traveling between countries, but then decided that they would move to Spokane, her and her husband, in 2010. They're now in the process of actually creating her dream studio in Cody, Wyoming, which is just a hop, skip, and a jump from where I'm at. So It's awesome to have her here. Krystii's paintings have been exhibited in museums, including the Eiteljorg Museum of American Indians and Western Art. She's also been in the Booth Western Art Museum, the Briscoe Western Art Museum, the Buffalo Bill Center of the West, and the Autry Museum of the American West. She has 26 paintings in museum collections and has won numerous major awards, including Purchase Awards at the Quest for the West and the Hockaday Museum of Art. Her most recent accolade is the Artist of Distinction Award from the Quest for the West, a major retrospective exhibition at the Eiteljorg Museum, which is happening this September and October. And she is the first woman ever to be awarded this honor. So what an incredible bio you have here, Krystii.
Thank you.
And what an awesome story. And we want to hear a lot more. Okay. So to start off, please share with us kind of how you started early on and that whole journey from there to now and what that has looked like for you.
It's been a huge adventure. As you said, when I was 4 years old, I don't remember, but my parents said that I came into the living room one day and just made this grand announcement, I'm going to be an artist. And they went, oh, okay then, I guess she knows what she's going to do.
That's awesome.
And it's all I've ever wanted to do, but I got kind of sidetracked because at the end of high school, when I was like, I'm going to be an artist, I didn't know any artists. I didn't know how to be an artist. I didn't know what that looked like. I just knew it was what I wanted to do. Oh. And you have a counselor that tells you what university course you need to take. And they said, oh, no, you can't be an artist. That's not a real job. That's a hobby.
Wow.
Because I was female, and this is back in the, 70s, I guess. That she said, well, you're a woman, so just be a secretary. You're good at typing, and then you'll get married and have babies and stay home and look after your husband. And it was like, she mapped out a life, and I was like, no, that's not my life. That's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I only did a year and a bit of the university course in graphic design because it was the shortest course I could find that was kind of art related, but I hated it. I did really well, but hated it. It was, I guess by that time I discovered I don't like to be told what to do. So, then on my 18th birthday, my mother bought me a designer outfit, and I looked at it and realized how simple it was. And I said to her, I could make this. Let's be fashion designers.
Wow.
And, and there again, I was 18. I didn't know that was something that was supposed to be impossible to do. So we just set out and did it, and built this huge monster company. And so by the time I was in my early 20s, I'm employing 50 people. I'm showing around the country. I'm showing in Paris and London, producing 2 collections a year. And we built up the biggest bridal wear company in Australia at that time, which was quite amazing. But
That's
it was
incredible.
Yeah, I know. And I look back and think, how did I do that? I'm just such a meek, mild, shy sort of person. But you start a ball rolling and it just takes off. And we created a monster. It was interesting. I learned a huge amount, but it took over my life because it was, I had to be there all the time. I couldn't stop because I had to feed those people. I had to keep them busy. We had to make sales. And in the end, it just wore us down. So we closed it, and thank God that's over. And I went back to trying to be an artist again. So what's that, 26, 27, I kind of started again. Wow. And still had no idea how to be an artist. And this is before internet. So, and I'm in Australia, which is kind of a backwater. So there wasn't the whole network and market that there was in America. And I just didn't know anything about the art world. So I had to start from scratch. And I found a teacher, thank goodness, after a year or two. And he taught me traditional realism, tonal realism, the old master style, starting to paint in black and white and then moving to color, and always from life. He was a purist about painting from life.
Wow.
And it was the best training I ever had. He taught me how to see. His whole process was to learn to see what was in front of you and then interpret that in an artistic way, and how to apply the paint to achieve control of the eye and how someone else would see what I was seeing. So it was more about interpretation than a technique or anything. So it was great training.
That's awesome. That's so neat to hear. And that was in Australia as well, correct?
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
That was in Australia. And so I painted with him for 5 years. He was already in his 80s and quite old, but he took me on so hard on me. But it was good. I used to come home from classes in tears saying, oh, I'm never going to paint again. But of course I did, because I'm addicted to it. But then
you knew he could push you, it sounds like.
Well, yeah, I think that was it, that he could see that he could get more out of me. So he really pushed me hard, and I'm grateful for that now. But then at the same time as he's saying paint from life and being this very purist traditional approach, I discovered that wildlife art was a thing. And it shows how naive I was, that I loved animals and horses and birds and everything in Australia. And I love painting, but it just, in my brain, I'd never put those two things together and thought that I could paint animals, which looking back, you think, how stupid is that? But I just hadn't seen it. And I discovered the Wildlife Art Society of Australasia. And just, it's like this light bulb moment of, you mean I could paint the animals that I look at all the time? So at the same time that I'm doing this realism purely from life, I also started painting wildlife from photographs, and I kind of kept those two things separate. So right from the start, what I painted was diverse, and how I painted it was diverse. And I've never given that up. If you know what I do, well, you can see I've got giant figures and I've got wolves and everything in between. So, I don't know. My brain is full of ideas all the time, and I will never have time to get them all out for me. So I paint everything.
That's incredible. So at that point, How did the United States come into play? Because obviously we know that happened somewhere
Yes,
in the
it
mix.
So I was an artist in Australia for, I guess, I don't know, 8 years or something like that. And I realized that the market in Australia is quite small. Australia is as big as America, but it's only got like 20 million people. So it's very spread out. And it's really hard to get enough art collectors together in one place to buy art. So it was just a struggle. And I started looking outside of Australia and decided America was worth investigating. So we did a trip around America and met some gallery owners and got into some shows. And then that, again, started a ball rolling that I didn't really understand what I was starting. But that turned into 10 years of pretty much commuting from Australia to America twice a year. We'd come over for a month at a time. Wow. I'd jam all the shows I could into that time and then go out in the field and get wildlife photos and cowboy photos eventually and that sort of thing. And then go back to Australia and paint American subjects, which was always this weird shift of painting buffaloes and wolves and cowboys, and then I look out the window and there's kangaroos and cockatoos and things. So it was kind of weird, but it worked. And about 8 years into that 10 years of commuting, it just got crazy, the cost and the time and the effort, and it was exhausting. So again, I sowed a seed to Michael and said, this would be easier if we lived in America. Yeah. And, he had a good job at the time and he didn't want to leave Australia, and that was a big step. But again, I started a ball rolling. So then we started investigating, how do you do that? How do you get a green card? And it turned out that I qualified for a green card as an alien of extraordinary ability, which is kind of the next step down from Nobel Prize winners.
Wow.
Which was amazing. So, and it was a big process to put together that application. It took 2 years to get that whole thing to apply and then get them to approve it. And then there were hoops to jump through. But finally, the green card came through and they said, okay, you've got less than 3 months to take that up and be in America, or you lose the chance forever. So Suddenly it's like, okay, now we have to really commit to this. And we sold our house, we sold everything we owned, and flew to America and arrived with 2 suitcases each. And our books and paintings were in a container on a ship somewhere. And we arrived and then started a whole new life.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
And when was that? What year was that?
That was, 2010, I guess that was.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not that long ago, honestly.
No, 14 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So from landing in the States,
mm-hmm.
what has that looked like now? How has that all played out?
Well, we moved to Spokane, Washington, which was kind of an arbitrary decision, but we liked it there, so we bought a house there. And really nothing changed, because I live in my studio and in my head. Where I am doesn't seem to matter that much because I'm still in my little space creating my imaginary world, Yeah. So I was still doing the same thing that I'd been doing in Australia, but we didn't have that huge travel limitation. So I could do more shows. I could get to more shows throughout the year, and it just opened up the opportunities a lot more. But I'd already been doing, museum shows and solo exhibitions at galleries and that sort of thing from Australia.
Yeah. So there was already some momentum built up.
Well, a lot, yeah.
Yeah, and it was just able to, you just hit the ground running, basically.
Yeah, really I did, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So I listed off from your bio, you've had work at all these different museums. You have 26 paintings in museum collections.
Isn't that amazing?
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, it really is. I mean,
are they all over the world? Where are those all at?
There are 12 in an Australian museum. I did a series of military portraits for the Royal Australian Armoured Tank Museum in Australia. So 12 of those 26 were one project. But that was an important project, and that was really early in my career. That my husband is a military historian, so we had a lot of military connections. And the museum wanted this series of portraits done, and I was a portrait painter, so that was a great project. And then that led to a lot of other official military portraits in Australia. So I've got some hanging in some important collections there as well. And then the ones here, it's just a matter of being in the shows and having someone either purchase the painting and donate it to the museum, or winning a purchase award or whatever, or the museum just outright buying them. So yeah, it amazes me when I add it up. I think it can't possibly be that many. Little old me, really. But it's just one here, one there. I've been doing this now for 34 years, 32 years, something like that. And when you're in the middle of your life as an artist, it kind of seems slow and it seems like nothing's happening. But when you look back, all these little things have built up, and it's just odd little things happen, and then nothing happens, then something else happens. And eventually you look back and think, wow, this has built up into something pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you were kind of going through your story, and hearing about your history with the fashion industry and all of that, I had no idea, to be honest. I had no clue that was a part of your past.
Yeah.
So you saw some incredible success in that realm.
Yes.
And then to the point where it just became something that was so big that, and you said like you had to just let it go because it was
Yeah.
It was consuming your life.
It really consumed me. It's like a black hole because I didn't have time for anything else. I met my husband in that time, and he lived in a different city, and we lived apart for the first 6 years of our relationship because I could not leave the business. I couldn't get away from it. So, and since that experience, it was a great experience of business and how to build a business. And I think that's really helped me as an artist. But it also made me, I vowed never to employ anyone ever again because I don't want that level of responsibility. So it's made me very careful of keeping control of my art career and not overwhelming myself. Even though if someone offers a great opportunity, I'll say yes and then work out how I'm going to deal with it. Yeah. But I try not to be totally overwhelmed with what I'm doing.
So I was going to ask, there's certain aspects of that experience that are going to really be beneficial to your art career. In what ways do you feel like that has helped you as an artist?
It's just really good business knowledge, what not to do, of course.
Yeah.
But I learned about finance. I learned about dealing with the public. I learned about marketing and creating collections. And, I used to put together fashion parades with all the music and the lighting and the models. And so I dealt a lot with all of that publicity side kind of thing. I had to do advertising for magazines, and I had to do interviews and presentations, and I had to be on stage. And I mean, to me, that's terrifying because I'm so shy. I was like, I never spoke to anyone as a child, but I kind of created this monster, and then I had to get up there and do it. But it was just a really good all-round experience that I brought into the art. One of the most important things I learned was about people, because I was really creating kind of a living sculpture on a body. So I really understand the human form. And I think that really helped me with painting portraits and understanding people and being able to pose people properly and light them and all that sort of thing. And that translates to animals and Native Americans and cowboys and all of that.
Yeah. That's really neat. So as far as how you've transitioned that knowledge into being an artist,
Mm-hmm.
What are some of those main keys as far as, that you feel have been the most pivotal or the most beneficial, I guess in your marketing efforts and things like that? How has that played out? I would just love to hear more specifics on how you've actually done that.
Marketing. We all hate marketing. I know the theory. I know what I should be doing, but I mostly don't do any of it because I just want to paint. I don't want to have to deal with all that stuff. So I'm not good at posting on social media. I kind of do a flurry of it and then I forget about it for weeks at a time. And I've got an email list, but I only email them randomly when I've got something happening worth talking about. And I do have a website, and I think having a website presence now is really important.
Mm-hmm.
And so having a good website that you can actually sell your work from is vital. And the rest of it, I kind of don't do very well. Luckily, I'm in big shows and they do the marketing. And I used to have a lot of solo shows in galleries, and they did the marketing for that. So I didn't have to do it for a long time. But the world has shifted, and we all have to do a lot more of our own self-promotion now. And I don't want to, so I'm kind of being dragged kicking and screaming into that process. But I keep saying, I'll work on that next week, and I never do.
Right. No, it's a beast, and sometimes it feels like an elephant that you have to eat, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And taking that first bite.
Yeah. And then having to keep eating. It's like, I don't want to do this. I'm too busy.
Yeah. So, you talked about some of the things like an email newsletter, social media, self-promotion in general.
Yeah.
If you were just getting started right now, and nobody knew who you were, you had no gallery shows or museum shows or anything like that, how do you think you would approach it now?
I think the first thing you need is really good work. You can't do anything. You can't market until you've got something to show people. So you have to build your skills as an artist first.
Yeah.
Build up who you are, what story you're telling, what you want to paint, what moves you so that you can move other people with what you're painting. Don't follow a trend. Don't paint what someone else that's doing something successful is doing. You've got to be yourself. I think that's the hardest thing as an artist, is to find your own voice and be so good that you kind of own the category. That's the ultimate goal, is to be known as the person who paints whatever it is that you paint.
Yeah.
So much so that anybody else doing that similar sort of painting looks like they're copying you. That's kind of the ultimate goal.
Right.
And very few people ever achieve that. But if your work looks like a million other artists, you're never going to rise out of that pack. If, there's the art world is a pyramid, and at the top is just like 10% of people that are in the museum shows that get into the big galleries that make good sales. And to get up there, you've got to really stand out and be good at what you do. And I guess I've always been kind of driven to be better. I just have this drive to succeed, and I'm constantly setting bigger and bigger goals, and that's what's kept me going. So I think that's your first thing, is you've got to be determined as an artist, because this is a crazy way to make a living. It really is. It is the worst business model because you're speculating, you're gambling the whole time. You paint something and then you send it out into the world and hope the right person sees it and wants to buy it.
Right.
You're relying on other venues to show the work and bring the buyers to it. So it's just a bad business model because we don't have very much control over it. So you have to be dedicated. So build up that product, build up your collection, a portfolio, build a website so that people can find you, because just about everybody looks online now. Get your Facebook and your Instagram accounts going, post regularly. Note to self, post regularly. I don't do it.
Right.
And then you've got to get out in the real world. You've got to go to the galleries and show them your work and talk to them, and also see how your work fits in with other people. Go out and meet artists, call artists. Very few people have ever called me for advice, and I'm willing to offer advice, but people don't call. So, I mentor a few people that have the courage to ask me, but I never had the courage to ask anyone to mentor me either.
Yeah.
But, everyone has got online courses now. You can buy videos, you can watch free videos. So learning how to be an artist is easy. You can learn the business side, you can learn the social media side, you can learn how to build a website. So it's kind of a lot easier now than when I first started.
Yeah.
But just show up, do the work, and then get out in the world and show it to people.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think about how, I my career started and has evolved, and how important it's been. Yeah, I agree. I think first and foremost, you hone your work.
Yeah.
You get that quality where it ought to be, so that you do stand out, and you stand, and you can the cream rises to the top in a way.
Yeah.
And when you are so dedicated to just making it awesome, and it sounds like that teacher that you had in Australia, who really, really pushed you. And I'm curious, what were some of his critiques like, and how did that shape that growth in your work? Because I think that's a valid point that we should that people need to hear about, for sure.
I guess he taught me to be humble, because I thought I knew what I was doing. When I first went to the first interview with him, I had to go to his studio, and it was a huge, gorgeous artist studio, and it's so imposing and so intimidating. I was terrified because I didn't know anything. I'd already done this whole fashion thing, but now I was starting again from nowhere. I had no idea what I was doing, and I'd done these terrible paintings. I had this little photo portfolio thing, and I took it in and showed it to him, and he starts flipping the pages and visibly shuddering. He's going, oh my God, oh no, terrible, oh no. And, I really wished a hole would just swallow me up. I was so embarrassed. And he closed the book and he looked at me and he said, "You better start on Tuesday." And I went, what? He'd been so disparaging about what I'd been doing, but he obviously saw something in me. Yeah. And then that's pretty much how it went, that I would do a painting, I'd be quite pleased with how it was going, and he'd come in and he'd just pick it to pieces and just shake his head and go, no, total, that's just, you don't get it. Probably took me 3 years for what he was trying to show me to actually get into my brain. And I had a light bulb moment where he was explaining the light and the depth and everything, and suddenly my brain clicked and got it. And at that moment, it was a literal light bulb moment that I went, oh, now I get it. And then I looked back to the moment before and could not understand why I couldn't get it before. It was just like my brain took this huge leap of suddenly seeing the world differently with artist's eyes. And from then, the critiques got better. So
that's incredible.
Yeah.
There's no way around the work in creating art. And
brush
I
lines.
think
you have to have a lot of miles.
Yeah. And when I was in college, one of the phrases we would always talk about was, how many miles have you put on your pencil or your paintbrush? Because there's no way to get past that aspect.
Yep.
So that our brain can be trained to finally make that shift.
Yes. My teacher used to say, when you've done 300 paintings of a certain subject, then you can call yourself a landscape painter or a still life painter. And at the start, you think, my God, 300 paintings, that's a lot. But it didn't take that long to do them. And, you learn. If you've done something 300 times, then you've learned something. But if you've only done it 10 times, you haven't learned anything yet.
I think we're all really good at being social media people. I know I've done that. I've swiped through social media more than 300 times.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm a social mediaist. And I think it's a lot of people, they'll say, I don't have the time to put in that kind of work or energy into it. And some people, they have jobs, they've got to provide for their livelihood, their family, whatever it is.
That's it.
What would you say to somebody in that situation? How can you help somebody like that
I would say still do as much as you can. So if your time is limited, you look at your day and take out the TV time, take out the scrolling, the social media time, and put that into painting and do small paintings. If you can turn out one little study a day, in a year, you've done 350 paintings. So it's not impossible. You just need to break it down into bites that you can handle in whatever time you've got available.
No, I think that's really valuable. I think so many times when we think of art, a lot of times we have this kind of romantic, grandiose vision, and you've got some pretty big pieces behind you. And I think, I personally love to paint big.
Yeah.
It's like go big or go home.
Yep.
But I agree. Early on, when I was doing just a lot of small paintings, and I still do a lot of small pieces.
Yeah.
And they're less paint. It's less time. You're making that problem into a much more manageable thing.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that's extremely helpful advice for anybody getting started.
Yeah. If you can't paint, draw, if you're on a train to work every day, take a sketchbook and do little sketches of the people or whatever you see, or, just get that hand-eye imagination onto the paper flowing so that you're doing it all the time. It's a practice thing. You have to practice, you have to learn, and don't just do it blindly. Don't keep making the same mistake over and over, but be critical of what you're doing. Analyze where you're learning, analyze where your shortcomings are, and find a teacher or find some information that's going to help you improve whatever that is. And I think that's what's helped me, is that I'm so determined to be better all the time. That's what keeps me going, is the eternal disappointment in my own skill level. It's, I have this lofty vision of creating masterpieces.
Yeah.
And they always fall short, no matter how good I think they are. The process of painting is, you have this great idea and you think, oh my God, this is going to be the greatest painting ever. And then you start it, and then somewhere in the middle, it starts looking really terrible. And you think, oh my God, this is the worst idea ever. It's never going to work. And you plug on through, and eventually you finish it and you step back and you go, kind of turned out pretty good. And, that semi-pleased with what you've done might last for a day or a minute. And then I start second guessing and think, oh, but it could have been better, and this is not perfect. And how could I have changed it? How could I have expressed that better? How could I capture better light or better atmosphere or tell a better story? And so instantly my brain is off onto the next idea of what can I do better next time? And that's what keeps me going. But you've got to be critical. If you get to a point where you finish a painting and you go, wow, that's the greatest painting in the world, and if I just do that every day, I'm done, like I've arrived, I've made it. That's when your work becomes stagnant, and it may sell for a while because people like that one painting and you keep painting that same painting, but pretty soon everybody's got one and everyone's seen it and they want something new. Yeah. So as an artist, you have to keep reinventing yourself. You have to keep getting better, coming up with better ideas and challenging yourself. Otherwise, you go nowhere,
Yeah.
You can reach a plateau, but that won't sustain you for the rest of your life.
So for you, what are some of those recent shifts that you've been making in your work? I'm just curious if there's some specific things that you're focusing on right now to go to that next level.
Well, these two paintings, that's why I put them there, because this is where I've been for 30 years. Yeah. This is where I'm going for the next 30 years.
That's exciting. So tell us about that. I want to hear.
Yeah. The shift is, it took me probably a year or two to be able to have the courage to make that shift, because I'm known, I'm known for wildlife and Western art. Yeah. I've got galleries, I've got shows, I've got a whole business built up around that. But one gallery owner, very astute gallery owner, discovered that if he let artists paint what's truly in their heart, he gets better paintings, and he can sell those better paintings. So, a lot of galleries want to put us into a box and say, no, just paint this because that we want to be able to market Krystii Melaine paints wolves or whatever. Right. And it can be successful. It's also a trap, because it traps you into one thing and you can't get out of that. But this gallery owner said to me, okay, if you knew you were going to die in, say, 5 years' time, have you created the body of work that you want to be remembered for? And I said, well, hell no. I've got so many ideas in my brain that I haven't even done yet. And he said, okay, what does that look like? What is Krystii Melaine? If Krystii Melaine could paint anything she wanted to do, and the market and the price and the size was no limit, what would you do? And I said, I would paint huge canvases They would be women. They'd be in interesting clothing because I was a fashion designer.
Yeah.
And their brains would be exploding with ideas because that's how my brain works. So these paintings are about me and my ideas. They're kind of about the creative person. You can see she's got butterflies and gold stuff, and that's what they're about. I feel like I'm at last painting my own experience. I'm not painting my face because it's getting pretty old, but but I'm painting how I see the world from inside my head and trying to express that in an interesting visual way. And
that's
huge.
incredible.
I mean, she's 6 feet tall by 4 feet wide, and that's in an 8 foot high room. That's the logistics of painting that is really difficult. I have to stand on a box to reach the top, and I have to sit on the floor to reach the bottom.
Yeah.
And so it's not easy, and it's very challenging, and they take me months and months and months to do. But it's so fulfilling, and I can't wait to start the next one. So, here I am at 60, starting a whole new direction and a whole new way of painting. And I'm so excited. And I know that's going to drive me for the next 30 years.
That's incredible, Krystii. I know I've seen at least one of your other pieces that's in this series. Do you have a place for them at this point? Like are you looking into galleries at this point with them? How are you planning to get this out there?
They're all going to the one gallery, Sanders Gallery in Tucson. He's the one that inspired me to do this.
Yeah.
And so he has exclusivity that they're only available through him. And so far, the first two were different. They were kind of simpler, and I was going in a more abstract direction.
Yeah.
And I liked them, but that wasn't quite right. But what have I done? 3. I think she's the 4th one in this style, and the other 3 are sold. So
wow.
I'm now getting to the point where I have a waiting list for this one, and the previous one sold before I'd even finished it. And, for an artist, that is the ultimate, to have people buying your work before you even finish it because they trust what you're doing. It's like, yeah, I finally made it.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
And I think that's really inspiring. I think I need to hear that. The phrase that that gallery, the gallery owner, that question he asked you, can you rephrase that again? Like I love that, and I'm gonna butcher it if I try to say it again. But what did we say? Because I think we need to hear it again.
Yeah, it was conversations over a whole year. I was resistant to the change because it's hard as artists to change, and it's hard to take a risk with what you're doing and just go way off on left field and make that work.
Yeah.
But he just kept talking to me about what legacy do you want to leave? What is your masterpiece? What are your masterworks? What do they look like? Are they what you've been doing, or is there something else in you that you need to get out and say to the world? Yeah. And he finally convinced me to have the courage to do it. And here I am, and it's working.
That is incredible.
I mean, it could have gone badly. I might have come up with something that didn't work or didn't sell, but so far they're selling. But I'm enjoying it. I think that's the most important part of that, is that I'm really enjoying the process, and I'm enthusiastic to do the next one. I can't wait to start the next one. So as an artist, I think that's what keeps you going when it's challenging and it's difficult.
Yeah. So how do you see this transition taking place? Is it going to be like cold turkey? You're ending the wildlife and stuff. How is that transition taking place for you?
I can't give up completely because I've built this whole life of, I've got galleries and I've got shows and I've got commitments and I've got collectors, and I still love all the things I've been painting.
Yeah.
But now I've added something. So here I go, trying to make my life way more complicated. I want to do everything I was doing before that I didn't have time to do all of it. And then I want to add this whole new thing on top of that and find time for that too. So both things have to be smaller than I want them to be. At the moment, I want to be 3 different people because on the side, I'm also building a whole other art business and a whole other website to handle my abstracts. Because a few years ago, I I did this sidetrack on exploring abstracts, and I absolutely love abstracts. So now my brain is like Western art, giant angel figures, and abstracts, and I'm trying to be 3 different people all at once. So, yeah.
That
so
sounds a little exhausting, but really incredible and inspirational.
Mm-hmm. I know. I'm a glutton for punishment. I can't help myself. But, I don't want to give up any one thing in all of that. I want to do all of it. And, I'm kind of getting to the last half of my life, or maybe I'm past halfway, I don't know. But there's still so much I want to do. There's never enough time to do everything I want to do and everything I want to say and the things I want to show the world. So it's just, I got to do it.
Yeah.
I work crazy hours, and I work all day, every day, and it's still never enough time.
Yeah. How have things I'm going to shift here a little bit. Being a female artist, I think I have a pretty, biased perspective as a man, in an art world. And I think even in like the Western art world in general, I think that, there's a lot, I think statistically there's a lot more men artists than women.
Yes, absolutely.
And like, I feel like this is the elephant in the room. We have to talk about it. Like
Yeah.
what have you run into as far as issues being a woman artist? And how has that been challenging, and how have you kind of overcome those issues?
I think I have been lucky in that I'm one of the few women artists that has got into that little tiny tip point of the pyramid. And, most of these Western art shows have got 50, 80, 100 artists, but you're lucky if there's 8 or 10 women in that show, and the rest are all men. So the opportunities for women is so much smaller than for men. And I think we have to work that much harder to break into that tiny, tiny available space for us. But then that's also a catch-22, because if an artist, any artist, but particularly a woman, I was given the opportunities. They came to me. I guess I worked for them, but you'd never know who's watching. So I got a call one day. I was still in Australia. I got a call from John Geraghty, who was organising Masters of the American West at the Autry Museum. And he said, I've been watching you for years, and I'd like to invite you to be in Masters of the American West. And, I was like, really? That's unbelievable. But I instantly said, yes, I'll do it. And hung up the phone and went, oh my God, how am I going to do this? I'm going to be hanging in the same room as $1 million Howard Turpning painting.
Yeah.
And here's little old me painting in Australia. How can I do that? So that opportunity pushed me to look at everybody else that was in that show and say, I have to be as good as they are. I can't be less than, because I won't maintain my position. I've got this opportunity, so I have to step up. So getting the opportunity that was, at that point, I felt was way beyond what I was capable of, pushed me to be better, to prove that I was worthy of that position. And then that led to other people seeing my work and saying, wow, she's really good, and then getting into more shows, more galleries, more opportunities. But if I hadn't been pushed, I would never have had the platform to show what I could do. And I think that's a problem with a lot of women artists, that they never get that push. They never get the opportunity. They never get the platform. So they're never able to show what they can really do. So they always are painting, a lot of women artists are painting smaller, cheaper, quieter paintings, kind of meekly painting female sort of paintings, and they're sort of apologetically hung in the corner of the gallery, and we never get to shine. So, it's, you can't show what you can do until you get the opportunity, but you don't get the opportunity until you show what you can do. So I think women artists have to be not just as good as the men, but we have to be better than the men at everything. Just, and I think we need to be bolder. Women have to really, we've got to push ourselves. We've got to go to the gallery and say, will you give me a solo show? And I guess in the past I've done that, and I got the solo shows, and they were successful. So, I think it's not in our nature as women to be like that, but to make it in a kind of male-dominated, particularly the Western art world, we've got to be bolder. We have to ask for the opportunities. We have to apply to the shows. We have to talk to the gallery owners and say, give me a solo show and let me show you what I can do. Let me paint giant 6-foot figures. And, the gallery owner said, I don't know what that's going to look like. And I said, I don't know either, but let me paint some and see if it works. So, you've got to take the risk. You've got to step out of your comfort zone and do something way beyond what you thought was possible, and then see where it leads you.
Yeah. So, it's interesting as I'm creating this podcast and starting to create a lot more online content that's aimed to help emerging and aspiring artists. I've thought so much more about, my journey individually as a male, but I look at so many other women artists and the challenges that they face. And I think, a lot of women are, they're mothers too, and they have those domestic responsibilities and things like that. And, in this culture, that we live in and things like that. And anyway, I recognize that, there are challenges like this that women are facing. And so I think that's really powerful. What's the word I'm looking for? I think that's really valuable advice for these women to really step out and to just be a louder voice for themselves.
Definitely.
And so going to the gallery owner, once you get in a gallery, but if a woman is just starting out, what would you recommend that they do to kind of get that voice heard?
Yeah, I guess show up. If you're really just starting out, I would say join the American Women Artists or the Women Artists of the West, one of those groups. Even though I hate that women have to have a separate group to represent us, we need that separate group to represent us because we're just not getting shown in the general public. So join those groups, and they give opportunities to be in gallery exhibitions and museum exhibitions and to win awards and get the accolades and get something you can talk about, that this is what I'm doing. I'm in this. I'm a part of something big. And then that helps you step up and be seen. It's a building up from, if you're starting from nothing, you have to build something. So you've just got to build lots and lots and lots of things going on that eventually all come together and become a history and a presence and something you can talk about and things that you've done and things you've achieved. So, I think just keep working. It takes time. You don't see it happening until you look back and go, oh, actually, I've got 26 paintings in museums. How did that happen?
Right.
It's, I did this from Australia before there even was proper internet. So it can be done. You've got to work hard. And I have to say, as a woman, I couldn't have done any of this without a supportive husband. That, he was willing to give up his career and move to America for me, which is like, wow, that's kind of a commitment.
That's incredible.
We made a deal that if we were going to do this, when we got here, he retired from his job. He now is a writer, so he still writes. But our agreement was he would do all the things that he could do to help me so that I could paint. So he does the clothes washing, the grocery shopping. He supports me and he pays bills. He answers the phone.
Wow.
He does my shipping. So, male artists sort of have a wife that does all that stuff for them. So we reverse the roles, and now I'm the artist painting, hopefully quietly without distractions, and he deals with everything else in our life so that I have that time. And that I know that's difficult for most women to achieve. So I'm really grateful to Michael that he's done that for me.
That's incredible.
I couldn't be where I am without that backup.
Yeah. And I look at my wife, and we have several children, and that whole realm that she is running, that aspect of our lives that nobody else really gets to see, art is what I'm presenting to the world and, my work, but there's so much of that behind the scenes that has to take place that has to get done by somebody. And, I don't know where we would be without that other partner, that second half that really is pulling all those strings behind the scenes and being so supportive.
Well, I think that's one of the things that holds a lot of women artists back, because if, I didn't have children, so I've never had that responsibility. But if you've got children and you have a husband that's working and you're trying to maintain a house and a family and all those things, you just don't have the number of hours and the number of days that I've had to build a career. And, a lot of women are starting much later in life because they've already raised their children and that sort of thing. So it's hard. And maybe that's why there's fewer women artists out there, just because it is so much harder for us.
And I think, to me, that makes sense, mainly because of just the culture that we live in.
Yeah.
That cultural role that we all kind of have adopted, in this Western way of living, right? And so, to me, that makes sense. If a woman is a mother and is taking on all those other responsibilities, it does limit that time and capacity. And I know several women artists that is very much the case, where it's like they're doing this with the limited amount of time that they do have available to them. But I think what's really cool is when you see those women who are excelling with that limited amount of time, they're all in and they make it work, and it's really admirable and impressive. As far as, there's a lot of men who are listening to this podcast too. Like, what would you say to men artists in the Western world? And not to, I don't want to create a war here by any sense, but like, what would you think would be valuable for other male artists and men in this Western art world and in the art world in general? What should we know, or what should we take into account more that we don't at this point?
I don't know that. I really don't think it's conscious. I'm not sure that these, say, the museum exhibitions, I don't think anyone has allocated, okay, wait, I'm going to have only 8 women and no more than that. I think it's more that the women are not visible, or they're not producing the work that is of the quality or something. I would not accuse anyone of deliberately holding women back. Okay. I think it's just that's the balance. That's the way it's worked out. I know the American Women Artists group have been trying to educate museums to really look at their collections. And obviously, historically, there were very few women artists. So old collections are going to be top heavy on men. But more contemporary collections are also have more men than women artists in them. So the American women artists went to these museums and they would take photos of their exhibit rooms. Then they would Photoshop out all of their work by men so they could visually show them how much of your museum has work by women in it.
Wow.
And in the majority of cases, every exhibit room was empty, or there'd be one little piece. And that really brought home to the curators. And a lot of the curators are women, and they'd never thought about it. But when they saw their collection separated out, like all the men go away and there's one woman there and then there's no women in these 3 rooms, they were horrified. Wow. Because they weren't conscious of it and they weren't thinking about it. So I think it's maybe an awareness thing for galleries and show directors and museum curators to look at the balance. And I think it still has to be a merit thing. I would hate to see an allocation of, okay, we have to have 50% women, so we're going to put in a whole lot of lesser quality work just to meet that quota. I don't think that's right. I think it still has to be on merit. So I think the women have to step up and produce better work so they're good enough to be noticed, but also for the people making the decisions to be aware that there are women artists out there and perhaps look at them more carefully and give them the opportunity. If you see someone that's got potential but hasn't had the opportunity, give them the opportunity, give them all the wall space and say, okay, step up and show us what you can do. I think that would help correct that balance a bit.
I like that, and I do agree. That's something that as we're having this conversation, that the idea of merit to me makes absolute sense.
Oh yeah.
I think allocating a specific percentage that just doesn't make sense to me either.
No.
But I think being aware of, maybe there is a discrepancy and maybe just a bias that we may not even be consciously aware of.
Yeah. I really think that's it. I don't think anyone is deliberately trying to hold women back.
Yeah.
But maybe some women are holding themselves back as well by not being.
And I think that's going to be true in any of our cases, that we're the ones who keep us back from anything.
Yeah.
More than anybody else.
Yeah.
I believe wholeheartedly that it's really easy to point fingers and to give blame, or to blame the system or whatever, but that's not empowering.
Yeah.
That's not gonna help me to step up where I need to step up and to look in the mirror and just be really honest with myself.
Yes.
And look at the limitations of my own work and see where I can go and I need to go.
Yeah. That's something that I tell the people that I mentor. They'll apply for a show and get rejected, or they'll enter a competition and not win. And they'll be, it's natural human nature to be, what's the word? I don't know, just angry about it, or, object, like that's not fair. The judge is not fair. The judge didn't know what they were talking about or something. But I say to them, okay, try to step back from your personal connection to your work. Put all of the exhibition up on the wall and put your painting in the middle of it and be honest about, is it really good enough? What is it about your painting that didn't stand out in that sea of other art? And, do a real critique. Be humble about where you really are. We all think we're better than we really are. And we all think that the world should think we're fabulous. And it's really hard when you get rejections. So you've got to be honest and look at where you are. And I used to do that myself. If I didn't succeed in something, I would put my painting in the middle of my computer screen and put all the other things I was competing with around it and really analyze, okay, what was the judge seeing in that? I may not agree with what they saw, but what did they see that they thought was better than my painting? And that really helped me to look at my work critically and say, okay, yeah, I can see that I'm deficient in something. And then I would work consciously on improving that thing.
Yeah. That's a really neat idea. I've never approached it that way before when I've been angry, when I got rejected, or, to look at it in that context. That's really valuable.
Yeah. A lot of my artist friends, we would joke that we could wallpaper our studios with the rejection letters from shows. There's one show I tried for 11 years. I beat my head on that door and finally I went, they don't want me and I'm done with trying, and I gave it up. But that's 11 years, So, people look at my career and say, wow, you've done everything. Well, no, I haven't. There were a few things that I still wanted to do and I never cracked it. And I'm okay with that. I've given it up. But it takes persistence. You're not going to get into everything the first try.
Yeah. I think that goes to show you just the persistence and the skin in the game that it requires.
Yeah.
If you really want to make this work, you got to develop that thick skin.
Absolutely.
And roll with the punches and allow that to roll off your back like water off of a duck or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
You have to get to that point. Otherwise you just I don't know. It's easy to give up. It would be really easy to give up.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a crazy business model. It's a ridiculous way to try to make a living. And it's an emotional roller coaster. You have times when things are going really well, and then you have times when nothing sells. You might go 8 months or a year with no sales and no income. You've got to be prepared financially to deal with that, but also emotionally to not give up and to be able to keep painting and keep getting better and just know that it's going to work. Or if it's not working, you've got to be able to change and pivot and work out what's not working and fix whatever that is.
Yeah. Yeah, this is great stuff. So I guess I'm trying to think what would be really valuable to hit on. You said that you are mentoring a couple artists who have been brave enough to reach out and ask for, what is that looking like in your mentoring?
Well, see, I don't want to encourage people because I don't have time to mentor anyone else. But I would say if you want to learn and there's an artist you admire, contact them. Most of us, we're just ordinary people. If someone calls me, I'm happy to help and give advice and that sort of thing. So, call your hero and say, can I come by your studio and watch you paint? Or, can you look at my work and give me a direction? Or, that sort of thing. So, and like I said, I'm too shy. I never did that. I've bought people's videos and done their class quietly in my studio, but I've not gone out and sought out other artists. But, I look at other people's work all the time. And, if you need help, call whoever the artist is that you think can help you and see if they're doing a course or something. So,
Something that I've been so grateful for and impressed with is how generous artists are. And I'm my main realm and yours as well at this point is mostly the Western art world. And I feel like we're kind of a big family,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And
everyone's
like once
a
you're
friend.
in that community, it's like we're so excited for each other when we succeed. And that's one of the things I've absolutely loved about this artist life that's kind of kept me in it is that it's like, if we're not winning, we've got all these other cheerleaders around us that are helping us and vice versa. And I kind of feel like whenever I go to an art show, it's like going to a family reunion, but better.
And I think that's advice for someone trying to break into whatever it is you're trying to get into. Go to the show, buy a ticket and go to the show and meet the artists and talk to the buyers and get a feel for it and be seen by the organizers, or go to an opening of an exhibition in a gallery and meet the artist and talk to them about their work. And, we all live in our little studio and most of us are pretty introverted and don't want to go out there. But, when I'm going to a show, I think, I've got to go out to a show and it's also hard and I've got to do my face and hair and everything. But I get there and it's so much fun. You get to see all your friends and you renew all those friendships and you meet new collectors and you sell some work. And, you've got to get out in the real world, get out of your studio and get out in the real world and be seen and meet people and get to know people and make friends. And that's probably the best part of being an artist.
Yeah. I think of other artists as my kind of people. We think a lot alike. We talk about all the art terms that we don't get to talk about with other people, like negative space and texture and color vibration and all those fun geek out terms that we all like to talk about.
One of the best things is to just get together with some artist friends and go to a gallery and analyze all the work, or go to a show or go to a museum and really talk about what it is that you like and what works and what doesn't work. And it's a great education.
Yeah, I agree. So if you had to go back in history, or you had the opportunity to give yourself some advice to help you to maybe shrink the learning curve that you've had to go through, what would that be?
I'm not sure that I would change anything that I've done. I've kind of had a dream career. It's gone really well. Things have come to me and I've been successful, and I know there's a whole lot of artists out there that would look at my career and say, that's what I want. And I've done it. So I'm pleased. I don't think there's anything I'd change. I worked at a pace that I could deal with. It's been constant. I never stop. I'm always working one way or another. But I wouldn't change anything. I think it's gone really well. I guess the only advice I'd give myself is don't worry so much. It's all going to be fine. And maybe be more assertive and, step up more and ask for what you want and just get out there more. Do more marketing.
So how do you think any woman artist or any artist, how how could they be more assertive? Like, in what specific ways? You mentioned earlier, like talking to a gallery owner, but what other ways would you suggest?
I guess when I say assertive, you don't want to be obnoxious.
Right.
You still want to maintain sort of a humbleness and not just go out to a gallery and say, I'm the greatest artist. Why aren't you giving me a show? It's not like that. It's, I guess, making sure that you're ready for something and then presenting that I think I can do this. Would you give me a chance? And, when I have done that with a gallery, they've said, sure, because, the galleries are looking for ways to market and sell art as well. And, I think that's possibly one of the things I would tell myself if I had to go back is that don't put other people on a pedestal. The guy running the gallery is just an ordinary person struggling to make his business work like the rest of us. And
Yep.
they don't necessarily know any more than we do. So if you present to a gallery, here's what I'd like to do. Here's the theme of my exhibition. Here's how many paintings I'm going to do. Here would be the best time of year for me to do it. Does that fit your schedule? They're going to go, sure, because now I don't have to think about it. Here's a presentation. It's all wrapped up for me. So,
Yeah.
be assertive in planning and doing some of the work that you wish that your representatives would do for you. Do that and give it to them and say, here's what I'd like you to do. And I think in a lot of cases, the gallery owner or the show or the museum or wherever you're trying to get into is going to go, sure, we'll give that a try.
Yeah, that's really incredible. Like the mindset of almost solving somebody else's problem,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think, and whether we like it or not, as artists, as professional artists, we're entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And that's what an entrepreneur does, is we
Exactly.
solve other people's problems that they don't really, nobody else wants to take care of. But if you have that mindset of, a gallery owner has all these different shows or presentations that he's got to come up with over the course of a year.
Yeah.
I might, I can come up with this idea, and this could solve his problem and make his life easier.
Yeah.
And I also get my work in front of the people I want to. So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
That's a great perspective.
And kind of leading on from that, one of my biggest rules for myself, and I think is good advice for any artist, because we're so flaky and we're really not organized and we hate paperwork and we run late and we do all things wrong. Be easy to work with. Be reliable, show up on time, if you're entering a show, meet the deadlines, get your image in the day before or a week before or something. Be reliable, ship your work so it gets there on time, and be easy to work with. That's always been my rule, is be easy to work with, so that, if no matter what else is going on, they're not going to go, oh, that Krystii Melaine, she's always late and she's kind of hard to deal with and we need to cut someone from the show, so she's out. You don't want to be that person. You want to be, well, Christy is really easy to work with, so let's keep her. And this other artist is really flaky, so we're going to get rid of him. I know that's how it works in the art world. So,
well, that's how it works in any business.
Yeah.
If
be the good employee.
You've got somebody who does great work, but they're not reliable, you're going to find somebody else.
Yeah.
And these people, they have quotas, they have numbers they've got to meet and deadlines and things like that. And so if you don't pull through for them, it makes them look bad. And regardless of the quality of your work. So I like that. That's a good balancing aspect of being a professional artist is just being really easy to work with.
We're running a small business. All of us would like to just be the flaky artist painting stuff and sending it out and the money comes in. And it kind of used to be like that you could be like that, but not anymore. I think we all have to run a business. So you've got to be able to switch from your painter brain to your business owner brain and do the paperwork and control your finances and have a budget and keep a calendar and a schedule and meet the deadlines and do the show entries and send in the images on time and do the shipping. All of that is part of being an artist now, that, you can be the flaky artist, but you'll also be the starving artist in the attic that never gets anywhere. And these days, if you're a good business person as well as being a good artist, I think that's that will take you to that next level.
Yeah. All right, guys, here's a postscript for the podcast. I failed to ask Krystii a couple things about where we can find her. So Krystii, what's your website? And also, how do we find you on social media?
Okay, so it's KrystieMelaine.com is the website. If you can spell my name, you'll find me, because I'm the only person in the world with that name, which is kind of nice to be unique.
I will have links, in the show description as well. So, okay, yeah.
Good. But I wanted to say I'm teaching a workshop, which for me is a really rare thing. I haven't taught a workshop for years, but I'm teaching a workshop at the Booth Art Academy in Cartersville, Georgia in August.
Wow.
So if you go to their website, you'll scroll down to August and you'll find my moose painting as the image on there, and you can sign up for that. It's a maximum of 15 students, and pretty much I'm going to tailor it to who's there and what they want to learn, and try to give everybody what they need, because I love to teach and I love to help people, and I don't want to just do a blanket workshop that may not be what you want. So if you think it's not for you, contact me and I'll work out how we can make it work for you. So I think that'll be fun.
Oh, that's awesome. And, what a great opportunity for anybody listening to learn from you and your experiences. And then how do they find you on social media?
Krystii Melaine. It's like Krystii.Melaine or something like that. But there again, look for my name and you'll find me, or go to my website and there's links on there, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And the other huge thing I'm doing that I have to tell people is I won the Artist of Distinction Award at Quest for the West last year, and it's a retrospective. So for me, this is a huge opportunity, and for any woman, it's a huge opportunity to get a retrospective exhibition in a museum. And I'm going to have 25 of my paintings spanning 30 years all in one room, and I'm so excited. It's going to be great. And I'm going to do another giant angel as the feature piece for that as well, just to show where I've come from and where I'm going to. So
wow,
it's going to be fun.
That's incredible. So how are you getting that body of work together? How is that coming together?
We finalized the list yesterday. So it's been a long process of months of work of deciding which pieces, and now the museum will contact the people that own those paintings and borrow them back and organize to ship them in. Some of the pieces are coming from our own collection, because over the years I've kept paintings that I really loved. My favorite paintings, I've got them. So I was able to put those in the show as well.
That's incredible.
Yeah. It's a lot of work.
That's awesome. So Christy and I had a little conversation in between these sections of the podcast. And she has an incredible motto that she lives by that I think is valuable for everybody to hear. So I want you to share that with everybody, Christy.
So my life motto is, how hard can it be? That if someone else has done it, I can do it. If no one else has done it, I can do it. I'm a shy girl from a small town in a corner of Australia, and I've done amazing things, and I'm in America, and I've traveled the world, and I've shown my fashion in Paris and London, and I've got paintings in museums. So, how hard can it be? If I can do it, anybody can do it.
That is massively inspirational. and as we were talking, it makes sense to me. That first step is always going to be the hardest.
Yeah.
It's so easy to turn these obstacles that we see, or things that we see as obstacles in becoming an artist or getting into a show or whatever that is. We turn those into these giant mountains that are so hard mentally to overcome. But if we just start taking action, it's incredible how things can start happening.
Yeah,
and the really momentum that will build in pushing us into success.
Yeah. You don't have to do it all at once. How do you eat an elephant? It's like one bite at a time. Just make that decision or spark that idea of, what if we do this? And then every day, just take a little bit of action towards that goal, and pretty soon you'll be there. It's not that hard. How hard can it be?
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, guys. Hey, get to work. How hard can it be? All right. We'll see you guys later. Thanks again for listening.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Business of Art podcast. We would love to have you join us every week as we interview incredible artists and gain insights from their personal journeys to success. If this has been valuable to you, please subscribe and share it with your other artist friends. We'll see you in the next episode.